Hello and welcome to Brain Trust Live number 516.
This week on the podcast, we're live in the shutdown trenches, reporting on a good 2% of the news that's happened since you last heard from us.
And also the New York City Mayor's race.
Don't miss it.
This is Brain Trust Live. Hey y'all, I'm Brent.
I'm Lila, and you can find us on the web at www.braintrustlive.com. Sometimes.
Well, I was going to say, we've done 500 and some podcasts, and it's been long enough since our last one that we just had to debate how it was that we started the podcast.
That's right. So take
and it's by
from that what you will.
It's by introducing ourselves. So that's where we're at today, friends.
It felt like it was both time to come back, and also, in another sense, a confusing time to come back because we're not really sure what to focus on.
Yeah, well, we should,
Everything is wrong.
Right, and it goes without saying that, we're not going to be talking about the last 3 months worth of news.
Too true.
Or however long it's been since we last recorded a podcast. This is not...
The news has been bad. Sorry
right.
about it.
If you also haven't watched the news in the last 3 months and you've come to us today thinking that we'll catch you up, that's... I've got news
Don't catch yourself up.
No.
Start
well,
fresh.
Also that.
Right.
I was going to say.
If you try to catch yourself up, you will feel defeated and you will feel like nothing can ever be fixed. And so I just recommend starting today fresh with a can-do spirit and a positive attitude.
Yeah. Well, that's all you can do sometimes,
That's all you can do sometimes.
Yeah.
I feel like the last time that we recorded, it was after the last No Kings protest that we went to.
Was it?
I think so.
It might have been.
Because I think that we might be about to have the exact same discussion about it. Hard to know. But
Well, the internet is having the exact same discussion about it.
It's like deja vu nonstop with these people.
Yeah.
There's the same conversation happening about whether we should do performative, silly protests. I still think the answer is yes, so don't worry about me. I'm happy to go to a protest. I love a protest where people are wearing inflatable animal costumes.
Sure.
I think we should be having more fun. If we learned anything from the Portland ICE protests.
Oh, yeah.
Where
we should be getting in blow-up suits.
We should be getting in blow-up suits. They were doing naked bike rides. It was like as soon as they had a crisis on their hands, they were like, who's going to organize the naked bike ride?
Yeah.
They were...
and probably most of Portland volunteers.
Exactly. They were luring police with donuts on fishing rods. My favorite was that they were pushing the police and ICE agents back with tiny hands on sticks.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I just feel like they brought a positive can-do attitude to their protesting, and it looked fun, even though it looked scary. And that's really all we can aim for. But I do think that people took a note, because I've never seen more inflatable animal costumes at a protest
there were a lot of them.
Than I saw yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, and we were just at like a random one on a street corner in Los Feliz, because I've learned another important lesson, I think, in the last year, where I feel like in the first year of the last Trump administration, we were constantly going downtown like every weekend for some newfangled protest where it'd be like the March for Science or like it was like protests with things we'd never had to march about before.
Don't get me started on the March for Science.
The silent walk that we took through downtown LA where we just awkwardly stared at each other, making no demands and asking and offering nothing.
Yeah.
That was a march for nerds, and it showed. But I feel like what I've taken from that time in my life, during which I spent a lot of time in transit on empty roads and trains trying to get to an empty neighborhood that has no one in it on the weekends, was that you could just be protesting closer to home. And that still serves a purpose. And I think the nice thing about the No Kings protest is that it is visible in almost all of the city. And that's really what its strength is. Going to downtown LA to like go march in front of an empty city hall feels pointless because it's not getting news coverage. It's showing up on your social media, but is it showing up on everyone's? Who knows? But no one is like accidentally passing it because no one's there.
True.
We were in Los Feliz yesterday,
right?
And people were out here passing it.
Right. I didn't really want to go, if I'm being honest with you, but have the joy of...
You walked over.
Walking 2 blocks and being able to be at one. Hang out with Jack Black.
Exactly.
Somebody from the Gilmore Girls.
That's right.
But Jack Black always in my neighborhood.
Well, I was going to say, it's easy to hang out with Jack Black in Los Feliz.
I know. I joked that you would see Jack Black, and then
instantly.
we saw Jack Black. It did not take long to see Jack Black.
No. Wearing a butthole surfer's hat.
Yeah.
True to form. But I feel like my strategy moving forward, especially for these kind of like more performative protests, and I don't mean that even pejoratively, because I do think people deserve an entry point into protesting that's like fun and affirming, where you're like, oh, everyone's kind of pissed off about what's going on. I'm not just like in a hole by myself feeling sad and no one understands that this is bad.
Sure.
Like everyone gets it and we're all here. And that's nice for the people to feel when they're there as an entry point to like potentially finding other things that they want to do to like contribute
Yeah.
to the cause.
Sure.
But I also don't want to spend 1,000 hours in transit to achieve nothing.
And I think critiquing the marches is also
an
important part of it.
That's right.
So, you know, I mean,
this is the left, friends.
I was going to say,
without a critique, who are we?
I was going to say, so for people who sort of like aren't like, you know, permanently online, there's the discussion continues about whether, you know, these are worthwhile or not.
Yeah.
And I think that there are points to be made about whether they are.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the left has a lot of, I think, sort of things that they are pointing to about these marches, about
the organizers are nonsense
who
people.
who is giving them money, where are all of these 8 million people being, you know, sheep herded into,
right?
You know, how closely they are tied to police departments. Every single police department in the nation tweeted out something about how great and wonderful the protests were yesterday.
Right.
And I think it is right to contend that you probably didn't quote unquote protest if the police were happy with you. You know, so I think, but that's a semantics thing. I think it was I think it was a rally and not a protest, which, you know, fine. Like, but I don't. None of those are reasons not to have these.
No, it's
like that's what I just it's so great. Would you prefer like 8 million people nationwide just have done nothing yesterday?
Exactly. Well, and also
like, would I prefer a general strike? Would I prefer maybe somebody in some city somewhere maybe burn some things down? I mean, sorry, come for me, arrest, like whatever. But like, yes, I would have preferred both of those things. But like, that's not what this was for.
Right. Well, and to not understand the distinction between sort of like mass events that are comfortable for people who really can't put themselves on the line or won't, even if they could.
Won't.
You know, I mean, the last time we went to a No Kings March, we brought a friend of Brent's who's in her 80s and it was her very first march. We would not have brought her to an ICE protest downtown.
Right.
You know, like, and that was like a really exciting experience for her. And it was really rewarding to bring her to that and see her kind of experience that for the first time. And like, that is what's possible at a rally. That's not possible at sort of a more real protest.
Right.
But also that is what gives you, it's what gives someone who maybe would not have otherwise understood what it is to be in the streets some frame of reference for when they start to see people get arrested at ICE protests and they're like, oh, wait a minute, were they just marching in the street? I did that. You know, like it gives you a sense of like what actually is entailing, or what a protest actually entails. It gives you a sense of like how, you know, who the people are that come together for these things are, like what they look like, who they are, how they talk to each other, what it's like to be in a crowd like that where everyone is actually kind of just being nice to each other and like doesn't like this sort of national cruelty that we're witnessing. Like the kind of the left, the online left, oftentimes sort of would rather do nothing than something imperfect. But like, as we all know, like organizing can't actually happen that way in the real world.
Sure.
And I don't want to sound like an apologist for what the center left would like organizing to be, which is nothing.
Yeah.
But I also think that like part of it, when you're critiquing something like the No Kings March, what you should be thinking about is like, how could we have been there to make it better in some way? Could we have tabled at this event? Could we have done outreach at this event to kind of recruit people for a more effective kind of advocacy work or activism? Like, is there a way that we can like piggyback off of this to do what we want to do? Not like, should no one do anything because it's because they're not doing what we would do. I think there's a sort of tendency.
Yeah.
And this is, I would say, this is not what actual organizers are like. This is what the online left is like, you know? Like, this is not what real organizing is. But I only think that it's a relevant point because we have a whole generation of new organizers who came up in only online organizing right now. Because a lot of Gen Z became adults during the lockdown. And so they don't really have a lot of experience with how annoying and frustrating it is to organize with people who don't perfectly align with your values and principles and strategy.
Sure.
And like, I think that part of the criticism of the No Kings March is really inexperience. The criticisms are valid in the sort of in the theoretical sense. The strategic choices that are being made as a result of the criticisms, where I saw a lot of people just like abstain from participating, but also encourage other people not to participate. I feel like that is like not effective organizing either.
I get that. I think there's a few things that I think are that the online left that is raging about this gets right. Yeah. At least in terms of what specifically annoys me about these things.
Yes.
is that it seems like the organizers, who are, Indivisible and 5051 or whatever.
It's moderate damn nonsense people.
Right, exactly. Which is fine because, let's have everybody mad at what's going on in the country. But my issue, I think, is that, they seem very, okay with throwing their lot in with,
George
Conway and Condoleezza Rice, who are running one of the groups that just gave, a boatload of money to these protests.
Yeah.
But, I saw multiple reports online that Palestinian American people wanted to speak at some of their local marches, and they were told under no circumstances could they be nowhere near a microphone, and it happened the last time as well. Yeah. So, you've got these people who are sort of, being okay, well, let's, we're fine taking these people's money, but we can't even hear from somebody who is advocating for a ceasefire, which, by the way, has already fallen apart.
Of course.
So, so I think that, that's fair.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think is fair is the no kings thing is weird.
Of course. It's bad messaging. It's Democrats that are doing it.
It's really bad messaging to the point where, do I think that, Trump would like to be king and is sort of, probably acting like one to the best of his ability? Yes, sure. But also, really what Trump is doing is using the levers of power that are available to him to be able to do things that so far have been mostly legal. Now, granted, he's got a friendly court.
I was gonna say,
but what I mean is that some of the things that Trump has done and gotten away with, Joe Biden could have done and gotten away with. And I think this sort of goes back to again, the left's critique of the Democratic Party, which is that they won't ever fucking do anything. And I'm sorry if I just blew out the microphone right now.
I know. Now I'm gonna have to do editing.
Yelling.
How dare you?
But that's also fair. And so those are the things where I'm just sort of
well, and these are not going to they don't have an ask, so there's no accomplishment.
They don't have an ask, which is I guess now a third thing that I'm.
But that criticism never lands with me because
you don't have
Occupy didn't have an ask, and I think Occupy was effective.
Yeah, but it was calling out one specific thing about income and wealth inequality.
Oh yeah. Well, and this is.
And this isn't calling out a specific thing, except the Kings thing, which doesn't make sense.
No, what it's calling out is a corruption of the sort of system, the democratic system. I don't think an effective thing to focus on because I would rather focus on actual issue, policy stuff.
Agreed.
But that's where my leftism and theirs does not kind of coincide.
Sure.
These are the people who asked us to vote for Joe Biden to protect democracy. These are not the people who have ideas.
No.
And I accept that going into it. And I also am sort of okay, well, if I suddenly am seeing that people I know are going to something that has no ideas and is vaguely about protecting democracy, are they maybe open to hearing about some of the other ways in which we could protect democracy by having policy?
Yeah.
I think, the money situation right now is bad enough that there is no sort of resourced way for the left to do this kind of thing. And so I feel on some level, I'm yeah, of course you don't want to be taking money from Lincoln Project idiots and Condoleezza Rice.
Right.
Also, there's no equivalent money on the left anywhere. So the option is to have no mass protest
sure.
or to have very targeted, specific mutual aid driven, things that are not going to be able to make a national media story happen. So I both find fault with that in the sense that I'm yeah, that's a criticism that the left should use this moment to make. Also, we are not in a perfect situation right now, and this is a way to get a lot of people into the streets fast. And so we should also take advantage of that while, maybe being able to make a criticism of it. I don't think it's enough of a criticism to not participate in a mass movement. I think it's enough of a criticism that you want to hope that someone mentions it in the news story that actually does get reported on the No Kings March, whereas your random action in XYZ town that has actually been maybe more effective is not getting any coverage and therefore is not growing. But I also feel the thing that's nice about the No Kings Marches that the left forgets a lot, that is why I brought up the Portland protests, is they're fucking fun. They're happy. You go and it's everyone there is we wish we were being nice to people.
Yeah.
And when you go into really serious organizing spaces on the left, they aren't nice to you and they don't wish they were being nice to you.
They're miserable.
They're all miserable. They're mad that you're not as miserable as them.
Right.
They want to make everyone as miserable as they are. And it doesn't have to, organizing on the left doesn't have to be that way.
Absolutely. Humorless people.
And that, I mean, if we're seeing anything in, I would say, the New York City mayoral race, it's that left organizing can be really fun and community building and rewarding. That's what all this DSA organizing for Mamdani seems like. It's super fun. People are really jazzed. Everyone feels like they are part of something bigger.
Yeah.
And that is what organizing on the left should be.
Yeah.
And that is actually kind of what the No Kings March feels like, even though it's not organizing on the left.
Right.
And like, that is a good entry point for people who maybe could start organizing more fun stuff that's also effective,
Sure.
down the line. But, the sort of the money issues are universal in any political movement. I mean, the candidates are being bought off by this money too. We don't have anyone to vote for that doesn't take this money. We don't have anyone to organize with that doesn't take this money. There's no resources outside of this horrible money. It's a terrible situation. We live in this horrible system. I don't know what to tell you about it. Like,
right.
But also, I don't think it necessarily has to violate all of your principles all of the time to try to sort of reach out to people that are swayed by this kind of like friendlier, fuzzier movement.
Well, and
I think it might violate your personal principles to take the money.
Yeah.
Certainly don't take Conway's money, George Conway's money yourself.
Well, right.
But, if you go to a march that his money paid for, like, that's a chance to connect with your 80-year-old neighbor who maybe has never been to a march before. And like, that's not terrible,
Nope. Agreed.
Anyway, make your protest fun is my point.
Sure.
People would be going to more serious protests if they felt like inviting places to and I understand why not all of them are.
Yeah, I was gonna,
of course,
exactly.
and I understand also why police
having a standoff with
ICE
is shooting into crowds
creates a dynamic
fun,
that is not right. And that's also not going to be for everyone to do. But I feel like the reason people love these No Kings marches is because they're welcoming and fun, and that is maybe something that some other organizing spaces I'm involved in are not prioritizing.
Fair.
I'll say.
Yes.
In any case, some other news. The whole government shut down. That's really the big news.
Sure.
But the No Kings March was yesterday's news.
It's so weird because, like,
it is
the big
like
news
anything.
and should be the big news, but, like, doesn't feel like anything. And I think there's a specific reason for that, which we'll get into. But, like, it's bizarre that we're, like, this far into it, and it's just sort of like a meh.
I know. When I was like, am I personally isolating myself from news? And
well, maybe. I mean, I haven't turned on the news
I don't think I am. I mean, I have all of the same mechanisms to receive news that I always have. I was never someone who was sitting and watching cable news all day or anything like that.
Well, I was. But
now
I'm not. So
and
there are times where I do worry about, like, whether I have seen at least what I get the news.
Right.
So, like, I'm not ever worried about that. But, like, there are times where I'm sort of like, I wonder what the idiots on television are talking about. And I guess I see those
asking that question years ago.
Too, but because all of my time that used to be, I work from home, and I used to just sort of like sit in front of CNN, which I've now stopped doing years ago. I mean, I'm now watching whatever. I'm watching shows about sewing now.
Yeah.
As
you got to protect your mental health.
You got to protect your mental health. Yeah, I'm in my slow TV era.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think that, like, it's just broadly, there's like zero panic from anybody anywhere about this.
Well, the government was already not doing anything.
Well, and that
they had shut everything down already.
That's the thing. I think it's like have been feeling like we were in a shutdown. I mean, usually the reason that Democrats are like so like, let's get this government back up and running is because of, obviously, yes, of course they like send out checks and things like that, and we want those things to continue happening, but it's usually about like federal employees, right? And Trump and Elon, who I know is no longer there, but they have been taking a chainsaw to, government employees ever since, like, the day of inauguration, basically.
Well,
right?
and also,
so, like,
things stopped working well when he took office.
Well,
so, because there's the piece of it that's like, there are some federal employees that are critical that are not being paid right now, and there is going to be an issue when it turns out that, like, you can't fly to visit your mom on her deathbed because air traffic controllers are no longer showing up to work. Or, like, there are going to be ways in which this becomes, like, incredibly inconvenient to people. And it's going to kind of seep in, which is how it always happens. But the kind of like larger narrative that used to be the thing that stopped us from having extended shutdowns was about the federal workforce.
Right.
And we already are so accustomed now to hearing about people just arbitrarily losing their jobs in the federal workforce. And also, like, none of the functions of government
are of people.
Right. None of the functions of government are functioning anymore. It's like all of the like official web pages of agencies are saying welcome to the democratic shutdown. Like, they're writing snarky bullshit that doesn't make any sense. They're not producing anything because they've lost all of their staff. There's no recommendations coming out about anything. And so a lot of the ways in which you would like notice the absence of government have kind of like which has kind of been his strategy.
Yeah, of course.
This whole time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's why it's on the one hand, we're going to talk a little bit about why the Democrats are kind of holding on in this situation, because normally they are certainly the party of let's reopen the government, because they are the party of bureaucracy, basically. But I also think there's been a lot of discussion about, like, is everyone going to blame them? And obviously Trump has been trying very hard to blame them. And I feel like knowing that they are the party of bureaucracy, I just don't see a world in which all of his talking about this actually equates to people thinking the Democrats wanted to keep the government closed. Of course they don't want to.
No.
The government has already been half closed, and they're suffering mightily because of it.
Yeah.
Because their constituents are pissed at them for doing nothing about it.
Right.
So, like, I don't think that anyone is going to be like, oh, they love having the government closed over the, the Democrats are just trying to rob you of federal services. That's no one is going to think that, no matter how long this goes on.
No.
There's closing the government is the purview of the Republican Party, and always has been. Everybody knows that.
100%.
I think that the kind of wishy-washiness about it is mostly derived from the fact that obviously it's been messaged terribly by the Democrats because they're incompetent at messaging literally anything. And so they're sort of like, they have this wishy-washy like idea that they're protecting our healthcare, but they haven't really articulated it directly, and they've only so far sent AOC out to talk about it, as far as I can tell. But
or maybe she's the only one who is.
She's the only one who is right. That might be what's actually going on. But also, like, there's no world in which they would choose to keep the federal workforce at home.
Right.
Like, that's the only thing they stand for, is their own jobs continuing.
Right. I know.
Like, that's all. The only principle they have is that everyone should just keep on working hard. Like, they don't even want those people to produce anything, and yet that's what they want. So, like, obviously Donald Trump is like a president who wants the functions of government to cease, and has already achieved a lot of that. Like, people aren't going to be like, these dumb Democrats keeping the government closed.
No, I know.
I don't know what political hell there is to pay for that, though, because they don't have any power to do anything, apparently.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I mean, I think there's two reasons that they are fine with not rushing to reopen it.
Yeah.
It's because I think that I think they think that the healthcare of it all is a winner for them.
Yeah, and it's about to break in their favor.
And it's about to break in their favor because all of the notices from the insurance companies are about to go out to people to tell them that their insurance rates are going up by like 700% because of the ACA subsidies, which is what they're messaging on right now, right? And open enrollment is about to start. So everybody in the next month or less is about to find out how much their insurance is going to cost next year, and everybody's going to spiral out of control because literally every single insurance premium is going to go up, like,
a huge amount,
way up.
Yeah.
So there's that. And I think that they are probably smart to message on that, because I'm going to attempt to explain something else that is going on, which I'm quite certain that you probably have not heard of, but is another reason why I think the Democrats are fine with the government being shut down, at least without, like, getting some, like, real concessions from the Republicans.
Yeah.
Because there's another interesting thing going on right now where, as we all have learned in our civics classes, Congress has the power of the purse, right? Congress passes a bill, says how much money they're going to spend. The federal government, the Fed, makes the money.
Right. Modern monetary theory.
By the way, that's money just comes from nowhere. And then it gets spent, and it gets spent in the places that Congress said that it had to be spent. So if Congress says $10 million has to go to X, Y, or Z, it has to go to X, Y, or Z, right? Until now. Because what has happened was, back in August, Trump decided that there was like $4.9 billion that was supposed to go to, like, international aid groups that had been allocated by Congress, and he just wasn't going to spend it. He told Mike Johnson, he was like, by the way, that money that was in that bill that you sent to me, we're not doing that.
Right.
That's maybe illegal.
But there's no law anymore. Nothing's illegal when there's no laws.
Right. And he did it by this method called a pocket rescission, which is the thing that is maybe or maybe isn't legal. It hasn't been used since 1970. And essentially what happens is there is a period of time where the president can ask for a change to some sort of, like, budgetary issue. So he can be like, I don't want to spend that. And he can send it back to Congress. And there's this 45-day period where Congress has to consider that from the president. And during that 45 days, the money doesn't have to be spent. So it's basically put on hold. So this pocket rescission is when the president requests that review from Congress when there is less than that 45 days left in the fiscal year. So basically, Congress can just say that they're going to consider it, but they can let that 45 days run out. The money hasn't been spent, and the fiscal year is over, so the money doesn't have to get spent because the fiscal year is over and that money is no longer allocated. So now that sounds like you almost don't even have to fully understand what I just said. But basically, but basically what that causes is like Congress to not have the power of the purse any longer.
Right. That revokes their constitutional authority.
Correct. So the groups that were supposed to get that $4.9 billion sued the administration. And a federal judge told Trump that he did actually have to spend that money. Like that what he was doing was illegal. So obviously the Trump administration was like, hey, friendly SCOTUS,
we got to get in
there.
Can
you take a look at this? And of course, in a 6-3 ruling along party lines, the Republican Supreme Court was just like, no, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
So this is important because it's important background going to a shutdown fight because now Democrats are just sort of like, why would I sign on to any budget when Donald Trump can just say, oh, I don't want to spend that money in that way?
Right.
So that is sort of like going on in the background here. And actually, a lot of what the negotiating is not necessarily about this healthcare. It's that Democrats want specific reassurances from both Trump and the Republican Congress that if they sign on to a bill that says, like, specifically, if we're talking about the ACA subsidies, like, okay, we'll vote for this because there's money for the ACA subsidies in here. But you have to spend it.
Right. Because then they can end up in a situation where they look even more powerless because they've agreed like complete idiots to a thing, and then the Republicans are just like, never mind.
Right. Yeah, you could see a world where Democrats go out and say, look, we saved your health care after Republicans put the ACA subsidies back in the bill. And then Donald Trump doesn't spend the money, and then everybody's premiums still go up, and then Democrats get caught with their pants down.
Right, which they have been doing nothing but getting caught with their pants down recently, so I can see why it's time to start putting a firm line between them and being caught in bad... these guys are bad faith negotiators.
Yeah.
And the Democrats are apparently the most naive negotiators on all of planet Earth. And that one of the things that frustrates me the most about all of the leadership being, or all the Democratic leadership being New Yorkers, is that they seem like they should more than anyone know that the Trump administration is going to be a bad faith negotiator. They've been bad faith negotiating with Donald Trump since the beginning of time. Chuck Schumer has taken money from Donald Trump in the course of his career. He knows how bad faith these and he also deals with 1,000 little mini Trumps in his district as well. And Hakeem Jeffries the same. This is a common profile of person in New York City. So like. Sure. The idea that the two of them have been so far this sort of like naive about the process has been part of what's been frustrating you, America.
I know.
But this is really the first time that they've sort of been like, no, we're going to try not to get caught with our pants down this time. We might.
I know.
They might find a way to do it.
I know.
But you can understand why the more important thing is the assurance that the deal actually is the deal.
Right. Like, why vote for a budget when you can't be guaranteed that the budget is the budget?
Now, I would also say, though, that if they had really anyone with any messaging skills at all, that this could be a part of their messaging. Like, I think you just described it and you were the one who had to look it up, so it sounded really complicated because you were like having to synthesize all of this information.
Right.
I feel like what you just said was actually very understandable.
Okay, good.
And not that hard to comprehend.
Okay, great.
And is sort of like, you have 8 million people in the streets for a No King's Day. Well, this is the example of a man trying to be king.
This is the thing, actually. I would say, yes, you're 100% right. Of all of the things that he has done in the last
this is the most kingly.
This is the most kingly,
or want to be kingly, yeah.
Just deciding that he's going to spend money willy-nilly wherever he wants to. That is not the job of the president.
No, exactly. So I feel like in part of the messaging fail here is not communicating that the issue is we want to save your ACA subsidies, but these guys are bad faith negotiators, and here is what has happened. Like even just finding a way to explain that in complicated terms would be helpful.
Right.
You know, to be honest, like someone making an infographic about it would be helpful.
Totally. Because I understand, and look, do I trust Hakeem Jeffries to go on CNN and explain what a pocket rescission is?
He is not. No.
In a way that is going to like make Americans be like, oh, well, I see what's going on here. No, obviously not.
Send the right people. Send AOC and Chris Murphy onto television to explain it, or whoever. I mean, part of their issue has always been that they can't seem to figure out who the right people are to explain things, and it's like
or they know and they just don't.
And they hate those people.
That's
right. But I feel like this is a moment. I mean, I will be honest though. The only person I've seen try to explain any of this is AOC.
AOC. Like, she and Bernie had like a town hall on CNN the other night where they
she's
both
been all over
like
social media. She's been on the news. She's been on MSNBC. She's been out here trying to like communicate this. Yeah. And like it seems like there should be 2 to 3 other effective communicators available in Congress. There's not, sadly, but there should be, who should be all kind of like able. There should be someone who knows how to message complicated things to American people.
Yeah.
And by now.
And I have one suggestion that isn't complicated.
Great.
That I think would be a great solution to the difficulty that everyone has found themselves in right now. Because I think even talking about renewing ACA subsidies is probably confusing for a lot of people in the country.
Saving your health care is what they should be calling.
Well, and I think they are. But what I would say is that, one, Republicans don't have a health care plan. Because they don't. And B, wouldn't it just be great if what we could say is, we've got a better healthcare plan for you.
It would be so much better.
We understand that the ACA has gotten a little unwieldy, and even with these subsidies, your healthcare costs have gone up since the invention of the ACA.
Right.
Sometimes through no fault of the Democrats, we can acknowledge. But what if we just didn't have to be so fucking precious about it?
Yeah.
Even, did you see that clip of Obama saying that he would have preferred to have done Medicare for all recently?
I know.
Which, listen,
infuriating.
Literally jump in a fucking well.
That's what I feel. That's how I feel about the Clintons. That's how I feel about Obama. They all get out of office, and then they're suddenly like, well, yeah, of course, any reasonable person will want a single-payer system. Like, fuck off.
But I just, like...
Say it.
Say that.
Right.
Listen, if you think this is all stupid, so do I.
Right.
We can solve this.
Exactly.
I got a simple solution for everybody here, guys.
And this is where I would go back to my original suggestion, which is that they tell...
sending out AOC, but
maybe that. No, but that they privately, behind closed doors, start reminding the Trump administration that Vladimir Putin's fucking people have healthcare through a single-payer system, that Viktor Orban's people have healthcare through a single-payer system. Israel has healthcare through a single-payer system.
Because Marjorie Taylor Greene has been raging about us giving money to Israel all the while they have.
The dictators that he loves and looks up to have this system. This is how you become beloved enough to stay king.
Yep.
Like, why can't we just tell him that?
Yeah.
Like, at this point, there are no rules anymore. There's no, and the Democrats don't stand for anything, so why would they, this doesn't violate any principles that they have to work with the Trump administration or not. They don't have anything to promote or stand for or advocate for. They're just saying nonsense to avoid having any responsibility for anything at these. Yeah. Go in and be like, let's steal this guy back from under these crazies.
Yeah, totally.
He just thinks whatever people tell him.
I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene is halfway there.
She's halfway to socialism right now just because she's mad that they won't release the Epstein files. I mean, who knows what's going on? And she is at least consistently anti-war. She's pro a lot of terrible ideas.
Sure.
Couldn't be more racist and problematic.
And she'll vote for every Pentagon budget that gets put in front of her face.
Absolutely. Yeah. But she has consistently advocated a position of non-interventionism, which is what Donald Trump promised her he was going to run on.
Well, he's ended 8 wars.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Didn't you hear about that?
Yeah. Well, he told me.
Nobody's ever done that.
I can't figure out what 8 they were. That's been an interesting...
No, neither can he because he got asked.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, who else? I mean, when you're going for a Nobel Prize, you got to have big numbers, you know?
You got
to have the big ratings. 8 wars is a lot of wars. I don't know who else can say they've solved ended 8 wars.
Yeah. I think his most famous war that he thinks he's ended is...
It just started again.
It just restarted again.
Right.
So that's... probably which would have made him getting the Nobel Prize perhaps hilarious.
That's true.
Not that the person who won the Nobel Prize is any great person who should have won the Nobel Prize, but that's for a separate podcast.
Right. Tune into our Nobel Prize special. We discuss the last-minute race for the Nobel Prize where Donald Trump thought he could win it in 2 days on a brand new ceasefire deal that he knew would not last. But I just feel... like the Democratic Party has an opportunity here to once again resume my strategy of trying to pick off individual Republicans, including Donald Trump himself, from these unpopular losers.
Yeah, I know.
He's hanging out with losers right now.
I know.
Someone should tell him.
Right.
That's
well, and also
what would a 2-year-old need to be convinced to go to a, to promote a better idea?
Well, I think, you've had this idea since we started recording this podcast, and I've always thought it's genius, but
excited to hear what it is.
Because I was very excited this week and sent you the tweet because Ro Khanna repeated it.
Yes.
Talking about how Medicare for all would be great for business.
It's a very pro-business idea, you guys. And who
would save businesses so much money from having to give...
Who doesn't need business?
Right? Well, Donald Trump is a business guy.
I know. I can't believe that it's been, 20 years since I've been promoting this strategy. My mom's been we've all been all in.
Just walk in there and tell Donald Trump that the Trump organization would no longer be required to give their full-time employees health insurance.
Here's a tax cut idea for all of America's businesses.
Sure. Yeah.
Just call the healthcare costs a tax and say you're cutting it.
You're cutting it.
That's, use any word.
The most pro-business tax cut in American history.
Yes. We could have full-blown socialism if we thought more cleverly about just renaming stuff willy-nilly, whatever we felt like calling it.
Yeah.
But this is once again an opportunity for Democrats to also try to inception Donald Trump. And I do feel that they're failing on that front. Although
always.
He's been inceptioning himself quite a bit recently because he's been on quite a mental journey of late. His last few public appearances have been full-blown lunacy. And I don't know if something has changed or if he's just feeling looser now that there's nothing going on, that that he's now that he's succeeded at dismantling the American government.
I was gonna say
he's just
he doesn't have anything to.
There's nothing to worry about and nothing to do. So I can't tell what's driving this looseness, but I will say that among the great entertainment decisions that he's made recently. Because I do feel like his speeches have been more entertaining lately. Things are getting crazy, obviously. I'm not suggesting any of this is good, but I am suggesting that you should embrace the entertainment where you can find it in the end times. But he finally commuted George Santos' prison sentence. There was nothing that I felt was more, not just unfair from, a sort of the general sort of none of this is fair from a general standpoint. I don't mean that this has anything to do with regular people. But in the world of thieves that Donald Trump is a part of, I felt that there was something deeply unfair about a fellow entertainer and camp performer getting stuck in prison while a bunch of fraudsters and assholes who've all committed sexual assault are walking free. Right. George Santos is not high risk for sexual assault, No. So at least he's just a fraudster and a ridiculous con man. And he's entertaining. And I feel like if you are going to have, all of these idiots who, Donald Trump has kind of fallen, in line with, or, all of the sort of fellow sexual assaulters that Donald Trump will sort of randomly pipe in with, all of the kind of his Epstein bros that he will sort of under the table kind of come in and try to unseat a judge to protect or whatever, he's up to a lot of legal shenanigans to protect his buddies. I felt like there was something so unjust about George Santos wasting his talent in jail while some of the least fun fraudsters on earth are walking free.
Yeah.
George Santos is at least providing a community service of a sort. And it's not only that, it's a community service that Donald Trump deeply connects with and understands.
Right, well, that's why he's free right now.
But it just took him so long. I was like,
oh, yeah, I know.
Rudy Giuliani's not in jail. Yeah. Another lover of camp, but not no skill level even close to George Santos, Right. And it's once you have the courts in the palm of your hand, although who knows help for long because the Supreme Court just ran out of funding yesterday.
No, yeah, that's right.
So that's another positive benefit of the government shutdown.
Yeah.
But once the courts are in the palm of your hand, be prioritizing funny people for all of your, don't let all those J6 people walk free.
No.
They suck.
They suck.
A billion January 6ers got off the hook because of Donald Trump right away when he took office.
Yeah.
And George Santos has been sitting in prison, waiting. For what? It's
For what?
For what? Any case. Let's close with an important discussion about the New York City mayor's race. A real bright spot in a time of increasing tragedy, camp tragedy too. It's campy out there right now. And you shouldn't forget that just because it's depressing out there.
Yeah. Yeah, because that election is also, they're doing camp.
They're doing camp. But it's hopeful camp, which is confusing.
Sure. Well, yeah. I was thinking of Sliwa.
Well, he's doing camp.
It's less hopeful, although funny.
No. I feel like the Sliwa bounce right now is very hopeful, I think, because I've been thinking a lot about this. Because obviously, like, one thing we've learned, and they just had a mayoral debate, during which Andrew Cuomo once again revealed himself to be a total loser. One thing that I've been saying since the beginning, that my parents and I were discussing from the beginning, was like, Curtis Sliwa is like a known New York City eccentric. Hugely problematic, racist vigilante, not a guy you want to be friends with. But he's like a very specific New York City character who's been like part of New York City life in the most bizarre ways since like all of time. And because of that, I felt what I like about Curtis Sliwa is he is like, fuck this guy Cuomo. I want nothing to do with that asshole. He's not a New Yorker.
Right. That's the thing about that debate, which I did not watch all of, but it was just sort of like, there were moments where I think his intention was to go after Mamdani, like, as the Republican, and he's, like, standing next to a literal socialist, but absolutely cannot help himself from remembering that Andrew Cuomo was across the stage from him. That was a delight.
The thing that Curtis Sliwa tells us is that anyone who is like a true New Yorker fucking hates Andrew Cuomo together. He feels like part of the community of people who hate Andrew Cuomo.
Well,
and that is the most basic criteria to be a real New Yorker that I think that you can have at this moment. And so I feel like the fact that he's like a homegrown kind of horrible, where we're like, yeah, that guy with all the cats in his beret and he's doing vigilanteism in the streets or whatever.
Which is what Donald Trump was, but unfortunately nobody else could understand that that's what he was.
And they're not acting like it. In this case, we finally have a situation where like two very different kinds of like real New Yorkers are able to come together, Mamdani and Curtis Sliwa, are able to come together and remind everyone that who we really hate in New York is transplants. It's just, like, it's very heartwarming to watch everyone realize that they would literally rather vote for Curtis Sliwa than Andrew Cuomo. Like, I've been watching, there's been a sort of trend on TikTok I've been noticing of people being like, obviously Curtis Sliwa is a horrible person and a ridiculous person.
Yeah, but so is Andrew Cuomo.
But
so
that's the thing.
If you're contemplating between the two of them who
suddenly
to vote
everyone
for,
is like, well, at least he's a homegrown horrible. Like, at least that guy is of us. This other guy swooped in and thought he could carpetbag his way to being the mayor of New York City. Like, the unified hatred everyone is experiencing towards Andrew Cuomo, to the extent that the only Republican in the race is also just mad at Cuomo. He's not even paying really much attention to Mamdani. Has at times accidentally said complimentary things about Mamdani. Like, the fact that his only recourse right now is that he can't help but be mad. Because another person that Curtis Sliwa hates is Donald Trump. I mean, he is a real New Yorker in that regard. We have problematic people in New York, but you got to know who the enemies are. You know, you got to know who the worst enemies are.
Yeah.
And they're this exact genre of person.
Yeah.
But the fact that he keeps naming, like, he keeps being like, they keep offering me X, Y, and Z money to leave the race. I'm not going to leave the race.
Yeah.
Love that for him. The
Same.
fact that every time he tries to levy a criticism against Mamdani, it ends up being a hit on Cuomo. Like, it's just so, and then also any clip that he's been in has been accidentally hilarious. Like that marijuana clip where they asked if they'd ever been to a dispensary, and Mamdani was like, yeah. And Cuomo was like, no. And Curtis Sliwa was like, I've been shot 5 times, and I have Crohn's disease.
So yes.
Right. Like,
I know.
I mean, it's adding the levity we're looking for.
It's so funny, too, because, like, obviously, Sliwa is not going to win or even, like, do that well. But
he's not a serious candidate and never has been. He's been running for mayor for years.
No, but I do feel like he's having a moment right
He's
now.
having a moment. I also think there's
but
a
in a way that, like, he only takes votes from Cuomo.
Yeah. And he knows it.
And he knows it. And I think he's fine with that.
I think he would rather have Mamdani be the mayor than Cuomo. And I think that he, like every New Yorker, is clear on what the priorities are here.
Yeah.
It's better to have a socialist than Andrew Cuomo.
Yeah.
Everyone gets that. And Mamdani could make him rat czar, you know?
Sure.
A cat lover of that scale? I mean, he's down to only 4 cats, apparently, which is...
4?
Yeah. He had 30 during the pandemic.
Oh, my God.
He was rescuing cats all over the city. That's the one, quality that everyone knows he has, is aside from being a vigilante.
And doesn't he wear a beret all the time, too?
Oh, yeah, he wears a beret all the time.
Yeah.
And I will say that every year I see him at the Labor Day parade. So he, they talked about parades at the mayoral debate. And they were asked if there were any parades that they would refuse to attend or parades they wish would exist. And Mamdani was like, I don't care about parades, basically. And Cuomo was like, everyone should have, whatever. And Curtis Lewa was like, every single group that wants to have a parade should have a parade. And I would show up at every one of those. He was very impassioned about his love of parades. And I can say from experience that he shows up to every parade.
I love that for him.
Parades, pro-labor parades, you wouldn't think to find Curtis Lewa there. But there he is, waving to the marchers in the Labor Day parade every year. So I don't know, In any case, that's, I guess, some of the news.
Yeah.
There's probably more, but
I'm sure there is.
We don't have time for all that. We'll be back here and there to pop in with updates. And, you should all, here's my advice to all of you. Find the thing that you can do that will be the most fun and rewarding socially. And do that.
Yes.
Don't do the thing that seems like the most important thing to do, because you won't keep doing it because it'll be boring.
Sure.
If someone is like, the best thing that you could do for us right now is stuff envelopes, tell them to fuck all the way off.
Yes.
But find a thing that is like a fun thing to do where you make friends in the neighborhood and you get to meet them once a week at a place where you can chit chat.
Yeah.
And don't let anyone tell you that it's not appropriate to chit chat at these things, because community building is entirely about chit chatting.
Yes.
And go and make friends with your neighbors. And even if it feels like you're not accomplishing much, that is at least a way that you're giving back that's rewarding and actually accomplishes a lot, because if everyone does it, then everyone's doing it.
Totally.
So, go out and be nosy neighbors, if nothing else. Anyway, we'll talk to you, if not next week, soon.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.